It's the Titans of Assassin's Creed, the second best trilogy of the series. Psych, get that out of here. We all know the Ezio trilogy was the absolute peak of this series, and today in this video we are going to discuss one of the most heated discussions amongst Ezio-loving, Odyssey-hating enthusiasts. What is the best game of the Ezio trilogy? Now, I debated doing some kind of points or rating system for this to determine the best game, but honestly, every game in this trilogy is great in its own way and for different reasons, and it really depends on what you consider to be most important in these games. Like, obviously, if you think the story is most important, you're likely going to have a different opinion on which game is best than someone who thinks gameplay is most important. So in this video, I'm really just going to compare all three of these games, go over their differences and my personal opinion on which game I think is the best of this trilogy, and feel free to leave your opinions down in the comments as well. So let's start with the story. Each game in the Ezio trilogy serves as direct sequels to each other. Without Assassin's Creed 2, the stories of Brotherhood and Revelations aren't nearly as good. But the reason this story arc as a whole is so incredible and works so well is because of the main man himself, Ezio. Ezio is what brings the magic and warmth to these stories, and it's really cool to see his entire journey throughout this trilogy because we really get to see him in three different phases of his life. Assassin's Creed 2, we get to see him from birth to arrogant and naive kid to intelligent and mature assassin by the end. In Brotherhood, we get to see more of this matured, wise, middle-aged Ezio, who has to step up and lead the Brotherhood into a new era. And then of course in Revelations we have old man Ezio seeking knowledge, purpose, and wisdom from Altair's library. Obviously Ezio is great in all three games and he had a good story collectively, but personally I find Brotherhood to be the weakest link of the three. Now don't get the wrong idea, Brotherhood still has a great story, but AC2 is Ezio's origin and Revelations is his conclusion, which makes those stories feel significantly more emotional and important than Brotherhood's. Assassin's Creed 2 is known for its great storytelling, but Revelations also has a fantastically written story and provides closure to two AC protagonists, Ezio and Altair, and the game arguably has the best ending of the series. It was so amazing to see Ezio at this old age. It feels like you've been through so much with him, and it makes his final journey in Revelations so bittersweet. Just the pure existence of Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood stories are what boosts the emotional impact and storytelling of Revelations. In fact, I said this in my review of the game, but Revelations' story on its own may be nothing special. You need to play AC2 and Brotherhood for the story of Revelations to reach its full potential, and it's about as good as a finale to this trilogy as you could ask for. Really, one of my only issues and complaints with the story of Revelations, well, there's two actually. The first is the absence of a lot of the side characters we grew to love from the first two games, Claudia, Leonardo, Katrina, and the second is the lack of a strong antagonist. Revelations doesn't have a clear antagonist like Rodrigo Borgia from AC2 and Cesare Borgia from AC Brotherhood. I think it makes the story feel a little misdirected sometimes. In Brotherhood and AC2, it was very clear who your enemy was, but in Revelations, you don't even really know who it is you're truly fighting against, which may work for some people, but I think Cesare and especially Rodrigo served as much better antagonists. Rodrigo from AC2 was such a great villain. He had Ezio's father and brothers executed, he was in command of the Templars and evaded the assassins for many decades, and he desired the strongest power in the universe, the apple. And Ezio's personal hatred and desire for vengeance is what drove the plot in Assassin's Creed 2. Cesare from Brotherhood did of course kill Mario, so there was definitely bad blood between him and Ezio, but it didn't feel as intense as it did with Rodrigo. Cesare was a lot more arrogant and didn't care for pulling the strings from the shadows like Rodrigo, and he really wasn't as threatening because he's kinda just an idiot with unclear motives. So for me personally, Assassin's Creed 2 still has the best story of this trilogy, and probably of the series as well. Its character development, the villains, the tone, it's just unmatched, and it has a certain magic to it that's just hard to explain. Revelations also had a fantastic story, and it's a perfect ending for Ezio and Altair, so that's easily the second best story of the trilogy, leaving Brotherhood as the weakest story-wise. Again though, Brotherhood's story is still very solid. The gameplay is a little easier to judge because the improvements and differences are a little more straightforward. While Assassin's Creed 2's gameplay is certainly still good, the combat, stealth, parkour, Brotherhood improved upon it in seemingly every way. A lot of the changes to the gameplay were small, but I mean even just playing the two games for this video, there's still a really noticeable difference. The movement feels smoother, the combat is way more fluid and responsive, there's cinematic camera angles whenever you counter an enemy, there's tons of new execution execution animations that look great, there's the chain execute feature, the improved counter timing windows. It all feels way better. Gadgets like the hidden gun were greatly improved, the charge up is much faster, new tools like the poison darts and crossbow were introduced, you have much more range on your air assassinations, there's of course the Assassin's Guild that allows you to recruit and command assassins on the go. Brotherhood made so many improvements and refinements gameplay wise that you probably don't even think about or take it for granted. Revelations didn't have anywhere near the amount of improvement that Brotherhood had on AC2, and it for the most part feels the same as Brotherhood, except there's different enemy types, new execution animations, and they introduced the hook blade and all the different bombs you can use. Again, nothing crazy new in Revelations, and the new additions like the hook blade really didn't do all that much, so I'd honestly call it a tie between Brotherhood and Revelations, because I really don't think Revelations new additions are that good enough to make it better than Brotherhood, but I suppose you could say it is very slightly better because of those new additions. All three games have some very solid open worlds. Assassin's Creed 2 has multiple cities that have some nice variety, but I personally prefer the system from Brotherhood and Revelations, where everything is just nicely gathered in one large city or region. Rome from Brotherhood is absolutely one of my favorite open worlds of this series. It's immersive, lively, with tons of civilians and guards roaming the streets, not to mention it looks absolutely stunning. I love the color palette for this game. It's so colorful and vibrant, it just draws me in so well. Constantinople is a mediocre open world. It's way too big in my opinion. It's actually 4 times bigger than Rome from Brotherhood, and it made traversal really long and tedious, especially when your objective is on the other side of the map and you're not near any fast travel points. You also can't ride your horse at all in the city like you can in Rome from Brotherhood, so traversal is just kind of a mess in Revelations. The world also looks and feels a lot more dull. Like how I mentioned that I loved the color palette from Brotherhood, well, the same cannot be said for Revelations. It's very dark and brownish. Fair enough, Constantinople just isn't as vibrant as Rome, but it certainly made for a less stunning world for me personally. So to me, Rome from Brotherhood is easily the best of the Ezio trilogy. Assassin's Creed 2 has some really nice cities in its world, but again, I really don't like how spaced out everything is and how you have to go through multiple loading screens to reach another city. Not to mention, some of the cities have a really odd looking tint to them. So Rome wins this all day. This leaves us with Assassin's Creed 2 being the best story-wise, closely followed by Revelations with the slight edge over Brotherhood in gameplay, and Brotherhood easily wins in the open world. Again, your favorite game is likely whatever you consider most important in Assassin's Creed. A lot of people's favorite is AC2 purely because of the story. Revelations has a great story and some good gameplay, but a mediocre open world, and Brotherhood has a solid story with great gameplay and a great open world. In my personal opinion, I believe Assassin's Creed Brotherhood is the best game of the Ezio trilogy, but again, it's not nearly as good without Revelations and AC2, so this trilogy is really just a package deal. You cannot have one without the other. But again, feel free to let me know what your favorite game of the Ezio trilogy is down in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video and want to see more Assassin's Creed related content in the future, consider subscribing for more. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for watching everybody. It's been Master Demigod Viking Slayer, and I'm out.